to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something, completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from here, and this has been like a therapy session.
This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. I'm joined by Frank Warren. I want to thank you for making the time, because I know you've been having some issues with your back, Frank. So firstly, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, all right, mate.
All right.
Getting there. I was
yeah.
just going to hop out for a beer before you got here, but I'm back now.
Well, thank you for your time. Of course, yeah, a lot's happened recently in British boxing, and we will go through it and come on to it in a while. But I do want to go through your stable and the updates. We'll start with Tyson Fury, and we will address what happened with the Anthony Joshua fight and why that didn't happen. But yeah, what are you looking at for Tyson Fury next?
Well, it's obviously that caused a big problem. We went on for 3-4 weeks, and we've been struggling to get an opponent, and we've got the highest ranked opponent in BoxRec, which is now Derek Chisora. That's where we'll be going, and that'll be on December the 3rd.
Okay, you say Derek Chisora there were a lot of rumours about the Manuel Char fight happening, so was there legs in that, Frank?
Well, we're just trying to find someone. It's quite difficult. And what it's all about is that Tyson's been out had one fight in a year, and we always were expecting the fight in December would be Usyk, but Usyk wasn't available. Now that looks like, I hope, going on in sometime in February. So Tyson wants a fight before then, and he wants to get out, and we want to get him out, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, if you go through all the opponents that could have been made for December 3rd, I think the one that really stood out was Andy Ruiz, but is he going to fight the winner of Wild Helenius?
That's right, that's what I understand. That's what I understand is happening.
Is that a potential fight for the future, maybe?
Yeah, it's a good fight for the future. If Tyson wants to do it, we can do that in the future, no problem. But what I'm focusing on, obviously I'm focused on the 3rd, and it's, I'm sure, you know what I think of Tyson. I think he's the best heavyweight out there, but I really want to try and, get him out, and I'm not going to disregard Derek Chisora, but let him, he fights Chisora, and if he comes through that, then we've got the big one. And that's really what it's all been about this year, really. And obviously we got sidetracked with all the situation with AJ.
Just on Derek Chisora, I know the fight was offered to him recently as well, a few months back. So what's changed now? Why are you confident it's going to happen now?
I don't want to go into too much detail about it, Umar. It was really, expectation levels, but we've dealt with that now.
Okay. What do you say to fans that say after the second fight with Tyson and Derek, where you actually went into Derek's corner and pulled him out because it was so one-sided? Why is this a competitive fight?
Look, he's going to try. He's the highest available. I hope it'll be competitive, but I just think Tyson's head and shoulders above all of them anyway. I genuinely believe that, and I actually think Derek may even wind up giving a better fight than AJ.
Really?
I do. Well, I'm not being disrespectful to him. I just think that he's more vulnerable.
Okay. Do you believe Derek Chisora's an improved fighter or not?
He's a warrior, isn't he? He's going to keep trying, and he's going to give all he's got. And listen, anything can happen in boxing, but me, I believe in Tyson.
One thing we can say is that, of course, after their two fights, Tyson and Derek became friends, but recently I don't think they're quite friends, so we might have a good build-up.
Well, yeah. I promise you, that's gone well by the wayside.
Yeah, we should have a good build-up. Are we still looking at Millennium Stadium for December 3rd?
We'll make an announcement of that when we get it over the line, and there'll be a press conference in due course.
Okay. And should he come through December 3rd, I think, as you just said at the start here, the main focal point is Alexander Usyk next year.
Everybody's on the same page with that. No one's trying to duck out of that fight, that's for sure.
Okay, so we expect that in spring in Saudi Arabia?
Not sure where it's going to be, but that's what we're looking for.
Okay. Right, let's just talk through the Anthony Joshua collapse. So we know Matchroom 258 and Anthony himself accepted everything in terms of 60-40 split. Should have Joshua won the first fight 50-50 for the rematch, and also December 3rd in the UK. That was all accepted. You then sent a contract back to them. You got some comments back, I believe, 2 Mondays ago. What happened from there?
Well, what happened was it came back and with their comments on, and then we sent it back with things that we may have agreed to and things we didn't agree to. Sent it back to them, and then we were told, or not me, George was told it was coming back, and it never came back. And then on the Thursday of that week, I think Matchroom or Eddie put a statement out saying that that he had problems with his sponsors because not being on the A side of the card. And I think that were his words, or words to that effect, which I found pretty strange, considering his fight before he was on the B side when he fought Usyk. He wasn't on the A side of the card there, he was the challenger. But irrespective of that, irrespective of all that, I think genuinely, including myself, I genuinely thought this was going to happen. I had a bet with Tyson. He didn't think for 1 minute it would. He was getting frustrated about, deadline. He was putting the deadlines down because I kept telling him, we're getting it back, we're getting the contract back, and eventually I had a bet with him. I said, George is confident and we can get this over the line. Anyway, it wasn't to be. And then we got radio silence. Nobody picked the phone up to us. George, I think, rang and left a few messages. Also with Freddie Cunningham, who rang George last week, and they had a conversation, which I thought Freddie Cunningham was quite big of him to say what he said to George. And I'm not going to discuss it because it was between them, but there's a bit of respect from us for him, what he said. But at the end of the day, they just didn't want it. What they started off wanting, they're to turn around, and that's exactly what happened.
Okay, you referred to some comments that Eddie made, and it was in my interview with him where I said everything's been accepted from your side, so what's the reason why you haven't signed the contract? And what he was talking about was the commercial deals Anthony Joshua has, and that Queensberry had the final say at that point in the contract.
Right, so say how it is. What we suggested is that IMG be the independent arbitrator, because we did have final say in the version of our contract. So we said make IMG the arbitrator, and they weren't happy about it. And the reason we suggested IMG was twofold. One, we do business with them. Two, Matchroom do business with them. Three, the Zone do business with them. And four, BT do business with them. So they've got, they're working with all of us. And we felt that would be the fairest way. But we never heard anything back anyway. They never ever came back.
He said that they're your partner, IMG. Can you make comment on that?
We do business with them. We're not partners. We do business with them, the same as Matchroom do business with them. They also do business on a regular basis with IMG. But you know what? Then come back and suggest somebody else. They never suggested anybody. It's us. We've gone from saying final say, then use IMG. No one's come back and said anything because there was no more communication. It just died at their end.
So that was, in his opinion, what was holding things up, the fact that they couldn't sign due to the commercial deals. Had they...
But that's not what he said originally. He said he sent back the contract. He sent back a contract and that was it. But he never. What they sent back was full of red lines, which means amendments on various clauses in the contract. And we turned that round very quickly and got it back over to them. And it never ever came back. They said it was being sent back and it never ever came back. And that's the truth of the matter.
What you're saying, though, is that they never offered their own arbitrator?
No.
Okay, to sort out those commercial deals?
No, 100% no.
Okay. So then, on that week, George, obviously your son, did an interview on TalkSport and said that when you were expecting the comments back from them, when you sent the comments back on the Wednesday, he was in the opinion that he'd get some comments back from Matchroom.
On Thursday, yeah.
And Thursday, and he called and emailed and texted Eddie, but he had nothing back. Is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened.
Okay, how does that then leave things for a future fight with Anthony Joshua? Is this gone now?
That's off the table. I mean, if he fight him, if we get this Derek Chisora thing done, he fights Derek, and then after that, if he comes through that fight, which I believe he will do, he then fights the big one, and that's where we're at. In the meantime, when you look at it, he's got to now. AJ's got to fight himself into a mandatory position, and he gets into a mandatory position, and he's going to be getting 20% of the purse bid. That's how it is. Where he was going to get 40% if he, to fight the winner, or if he wants to, he can fight. There's two great fights there with Joe Joyce or Daniel Dubois. Both of them hold very significant positions in their relevant organisations' rankings. They're both mandatories. One's the interim champion, Joe Joyce, and the other one is their regular WBA champion. So there's another way back for him if he wants to fight. If they want to talk about that.
Frank, what did you make of Eddie Hearn and Frank Smith saying it was because of Fury's Instagram videos and deadlines. The fight didn't happen.
I told you why he made it didn't like, why he was saying that. But they extended him. He said it, and George rang him and said, no, we're going to carry on with this. I spoke to him. I talked him into it. He said, they will not sign it. I said, I'll bet you 10 grand they will. And that's what happened. And I talked him into it, and he was right. And we wasted time, but he was 100% right, which has cost me 10 grand.
Yourself and George were, you guys told the public that all the broadcasters were happy, DAZN were happy to move forward with this.
George dealt direct with them, dealt direct with DAZN and BT. There was no discussions via Matchroom, dealt direct, they wanted it.
Yeah, so for people online who say perhaps that DAZN were blocking this fight.
No, DAZN were very cooperative. Very, say how it is, they were very cooperative.
How did they feel about this? Do you know, DAZN?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not in a conversation. I shouldn't think they're too happy, are they? They've gone from having a big fight that they would have been involved with to giving him a warm-up fight.
Okay. Have you paid Tyson Fury yet?
Sorry?
Have you paid Tyson Fury?
No, I haven't seen it. I'm keeping out of his way.
How much you owe?
I've got to give it to him in cash.
How much you owe?
10 grand.
Give it to him pennies.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully we get some news on Tyson Fury soon. Let's go through your other heavyweights. Reflecting a few weeks back on an incredible night with Joe Joyce, he's now become a bit of a star in boxing.
He's become a 10-year overnight star. I mean, that's what he's become. But it was a tremendous performance in quite an exciting fight. And Joe Parker came to fight. I thought it was very exciting. So he's going to now be out in February. Looking forward to him being out in February, and he'll be in a meaningful fight. He's the interim champion now.
Well, after Fury and Usyk box early next year, he's next in line, isn't he? Yeah. Okay, we'll look forward to some news on the Juggernaut soon. Actually, just on Joe Joyce, he put out a post recently calling Anthony Joshua out for December 17th.
Do it in a heartbeat. He could do it. He said what his problem was, he went away immediately after the fight on holiday, but he said he could be fit for the 17th.
Okay, I could reverse that on you, Frank, though, and say, why can't he do Fury Joyce in December?
Well, we can't, because he can't fight on the 17th of December, Tyson. Remember, Tyson wanted to fight on the 12th of November. I don't want that fight being held up, the fight with Usyk, if he comes through his fights, being held up. He can't fight on the 17th of December and then go and fight in February. You have some rest in between your camps, especially for a massive fight like that.
Okay. Is that a fight that we could see next year, perhaps, if Fury wants to carry on?
Yeah, if he wants to carry on, I'm sure it'd be there. Listen, he'd be in line for it. We'll see what happens.
Be a very difficult fight to make that. Okay, well, I don't think Anthony Joshua's going to fight Joe Joyce. There's no legs in that, though, is there?
No, they won't want that. I mean, I don't know what they want. I mean, but they're meaningful fights, and they're great fights for the fans. They're all British affairs, and you'd want to see them. I want to see that. I mean, I've got my views on it, and but I would love to see that. And I'd like to see Daniel in there with him as well.
How does Joe get on with Anthony?
Who wins?
Yeah, how does he get on?
He'd be too strong for him.
Okay.
I think he's too strong, and I think he'll break him down.
Okay. What's the latest on Daniel Dubois, Frank?
Daniel will fight at the end of November in London. We are working on. We've got 3 opponents at the moment. I don't want to mention who they are. It's been dragging on, like everything seems to be at the moment. It's been dragging on, but he will fight in London. I think it's on the 26th, and Hamza also will fight on that same show.
Okay. Saw reports last week.
Oh, Hamza, by the way, we're trying to get him a fight for the British title because Denzel's now taking that world title shot.
Yeah. We'll talk about Hamza and Denzel in a second, but in terms of Daniel Dubois, I saw reports last week that the board wouldn't sanction his fight with Lucas Brown.
I didn't ask them to sanction it. All I've done, I spoke about a couple of opponents, and he was mentioned, but I never asked for him to sanction the fight.
Okay. So news on Daniel Dubois very soon, though, we hope. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I've got to get him moving. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Also seen reports about Zach Parker and this potential fight with John Ryder. Where are we with that?
We sent a contract to them, and we're waiting for the contract back. It's a great fight.
Okay. Can you say when you sent the contract?
I think it was sent back either Thursday or Friday last week.
Okay. Do you believe they'll take that fight?
Why shouldn't they? It's a good fight. He's getting well paid. They're both getting well paid. It's a good fight.
Okay. Hopefully we'll get some news on that soon. Anthony Yard, we know he's out soon. In November, I believe. this fight with Arthur Beterbiev is going to happen next year, do you believe?
Well, yeah, what's happening? That's going to Anthony's going to fight on the same card as Zach, and then he will have that fight for the three titles, and that'll be on the 28th of January next year. So he's not had a fight in nearly 12 months now. So he needs to get some ring rust out of his system.
January 28th, will that be the O2, Frank?
That'd be in London, yeah.
Okay. We look forward to that. Let's talk about Denzel Bentley. A fantastic news for him, getting a world title shot in Las Vegas against a very formidable fighter.
Good fighter.
Kazakhstan's Janabek on a top-ranked show. Yeah, talk to me about that opportunity for Denzel.
Well, it came up for him, and we get offers for fights. We have to tell the fighter, and he grabbed it with both hands. He really wanted it.
Yeah, it's shown that he's a proper fighting man, Denzel, because,
of course he is.
as I said, it's a very dangerous fight.
He's going on the road, and it's a tough fight. But he wants it, and he's got it. I mean, he's got experience now. He's got good experience, and he's it's a step up for him. But we'll see what happens.
I guess we hope Denzel does it, and I'm sure you're backing him all the way. As I said, it's a very dangerous.
Well, he's one of the fighters that he's with Martin and Tony. And he's one of the fighters that we really, care about. Well, we care about all of them, but he's been a very loyal and good guy to work with.
As I said, though, it's an extremely tough fight, and he does go against as a massive underdog in that fight. If it doesn't go Denzel's way, as you said, Hamza Shiraz is getting a British title shot, we hope, and that is a fight that the fans have talked about, Hamza and Denzel. If he doesn't win that fight, could we see him and Hamza next year? Yeah,
because I want to look at the positives, and hopefully he will do. But if anything goes wrong, he'll come back and be a preferential challenger for who's ever the champion. Okay. Which I hope would be Hamza.
It's a big fight, that him and Denzel.
It's a great fight, Battle of the East End. I mean, it's a great fight.
So I take it Hamza's going to be out very soon then?
Yes, he'll be on the same card as Daniel. Okay,
all right. So that Daniel Dubois card will have Daniel, Hamza, will Dennis McCann also feature?
Dennis is fighting for the Commonwealth title.
On that bill?
Yeah.
Okay, so busy times for all your main guys.
Yeah, they're all busy.
Just a quick one, last one on your stable. Tommy Fury, is there anything happening with him?
Tommy, I'm hoping will be fighting next month.
Okay, it won't be Jake Paul.
Wait for the official announcement. It's not for me to announce.
If Jake Paul wins against Anderson Silva, he's got his fight coming up soon. I mean, I know we've talked to death about this, but next year, him and Tommy?
We're gonna make that happen next year here.
Yeah?
We're going to work hard to make that happen.
Okay, well, that's...
Fingers crossed.
Do you think Jake will come in?
Yeah.
Okay, we look forward to that. Right, Frank, of course, at the start of this interview I said there's been a lot going on in British boxing. Just want to get your initial thoughts about Conor Benn's failed VADA test and the collapse of the fight with Chris Eubank Jr.
Well, I think it was it was a low for British boxing. It was a low for the sport. It wasn't handled pretty badly. The fact they took so long to, let the penny drop that the fight could never go forward, and some of the stuff that's come out since about people being, the board being sued and something, and so forth, is just a non-runner. It's crazy. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Conor tested positive, and everyone was made aware of that on the 23rd of September by VADA. And the Border Control, it is in their power to stop a fight, and it's Rule 9.8, and I'll read it out. It says, the board or any area council shall have the power to prohibit any contest which in their opinion is not in the interest of boxing. So no one can tell me that a catchweight fight, which we all had reservations about to start with, whether Conor can make the weight, but whether Chris Eubanks could safely, he was going to wind up fighting they were trying to put forward a fight with someone who tested positive for a drug that is on the banned list, and the banned list of VADA, UCAD, everybody. And Border Control got another regulation. It's 31 brackets V, which is 5. all licence holders agree to cooperate fully with any World Anti-Doping Code compliant anti-doping investigations or proceedings, whether conducted by the UK Anti-Doping or any other competent body. So how on earth did it get to where it got to? It's just ridiculous, and it was dangerous. It was really dangerous, and handled terribly badly, and it just brought boxing into disrepute. I mean, it was just awful.
Okay, if you were promoting Chris Eubank Jr. v Conor Benn, and 3 weeks ago it came out that Conor Benn failed a VADA test, what would you have done?
Cancelled it.
Okay. Would you have requested the B sample straight away?
Yeah, but the B sample, I know in my heart, would be the same as the A sample. I mean, what's going to happen now? You would think that I'm hearing that UCAD are going to ask VADA for the report.
That has happened.
Oh, it hasn't.
Yeah.
And sampling. So if they get that, then they will take it over. And the unfortunate thing is, the man who's going to get the brunt of all this is Conor. Now, he took the stuff, and if he took it, he's over 21, he knows what he's doing. That's it. But somebody must have supplied him with it. You can't buy it over the counter in a chemist. Someone must have supplied him. Somebody must have known he was taking it. And somebody must have advised him to take it. So they should be brought to task too. That's what should happen. And what we also got to do out of this is look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is now that the Board of Control, who don't recognise VADA, and the reason they don't recognise VADA is because VADA simply, you pay for their services, which Matchroom and Wasserman's did. You pay for their services, they then regularly test the boxers and then forward the results. They're not they don't hold hearings, they don't suspend boxers, all they do is report on their findings. UCAD, if you are tested positive by UCAD, what happens with UCAD is they inform the board and you're immediately suspended, and then they have a hearing, and then you've got any mitigating circumstances, you can argue your case. And what normally happens if someone's tested positive for one of these type of drugs, they'll be suspended. Their licence will be suspended. What's got to happen now is VADA's got to be incorporated into this. If you're signing contracts for boxers to be tested by VADA, what's the point of ignoring them? Especially when it's in a catchweight fight, which is dangerous anyway. It's dangerous anyway. So they need to really shake up quickly where we are with UCAD, VADA and the board. And most easiest ways to do this, because maybe the board will worry about the cost of having these hearings, is really simple, is that if a boxer tests positive and he wants to contest the case, then make him put a bond in. If he loses, then he pays the cost of the hearing, same as you go to court. So, and if he wins, then the board will pay his cost. So something needs to be done. They need to draw up a list of drugs that both of them accept what can be used in competition. Because there are some drug, they do allow, UCAD allows some things that VADA don't. So that needs to be done. That I hope will be the good thing to come out of all this. But in the meantime, it's just been a complete nightmare. It's been, as I say, been badly handled, and it's not done boxing or anyone else involved any favours. I mean, no favours at all. It's just ridiculous. Talk about going one day saying you're going to go to court, the next day you're accusing the press of writing stories that are untrue. I mean, we all see the interviews. It's madness. It's just madness. And I think, everybody should stand back now and reflect on the matter, and not talk about people, being self-righteous. It's about being righteous, doing the right thing, and the right thing wasn't done.
How would you have handled them? What would have been your first port of call? I know you said you would have cancelled it. What would you have done straight away? Well,
you've got to talk to the board, haven't you? Well, the board have been notified, so the board would probably pick the phone up straight away. And obviously the board's position is quite simple. How do they justify this? you know, they've got insurance, and they're going to tell the insurance company, if we allow this fight to go on, one guy's tested positive, God forbid anything happens to someone, will our insurance be in place? Are they liable to be sued by the athletes or one of the athletes? There's all sorts of connotations what could have happened there and ramifications to the board. The board did the right thing, and I've had arguments in the board in the past over some of the things. You know, doesn't always go, you know, it's gone my way, and some of the things I felt quite justified about. But you can't be, when it comes down to this, when it comes down to PEDs, drugs, which has been happening for a while in this sport. And I was only speaking with Tony and Martin a couple of weeks ago about people apparently some of these guys now, trainers, putting intravenous injections in after weighing in. What's going on? This all needs to be really clamped down, and you've got to have some severe penalties for this. Severe penalties. Stop the boxer, take the boxer's licence away. Tell him you want to get your licence back after a period of suspension. You want it back. Where'd you get it from? Who supplied it? Who knew you was using it? Who advised you?
Frank, let me ask you about the justification from the promoters involved about why they were still trying to put this fight on during fight week. It was that A, both fighters still wanted the fight. B, there's a process going on, and the British board, as you said, couldn't and didn't want to suspend Conor, take his licence away. What do you make of those comments?
Of course the boxers want to fight. They're fighters. They've been training hard. I mean, Chris Eubanks, but can you imagine how difficult it's been for him to make the weight? I was told he weighed in on the weight, was it 157?
I believe he came in at 159, but obviously, he would have not been making weight properly afterwards. Yeah.
But following day, wasn't it? He came in, he done two weights. I'm not sure, but
okay.
That was told. But you know, he needed to be protected. I've seen photos of him, and he looks dreadful. I mean, you know, he's trained, he's on that weight, and he's got to fight that weight. They need protecting from themselves. You cannot, I don't care what anybody says, you cannot just let boxers say, I want to do this. You know, Danny Williams, who I was with for years, he had his licence taken away, and he went off and started fighting somewhere else, going around the world. He should not have been fighting, should never have been fighting. But he's a fighting man, that's what he wanted to do. And that's where boxers need protecting from themselves. And that's what the Boxing Board of Control are there for. That's what managers, trainers and promoters are there for. We're in a position of responsibility, and you have to accept the responsibility, not keep thinking about the money. Because that money might be, you know, fine, everyone makes some money on the night. Well, God forbid anything goes wrong, the fighter doesn't know where the money is or what money is. You know, you can't be having that happen. It's just ridiculous. It's totally beyond ridiculous. And I've got to tell you something. If it weren't for the fathers, what was it? It weren't for any titles or anything. It's, you know, say how it is. It's just madness, this thing. I cannot tell you the damage it's done. I mean, you only got to read all the newspapers, go online and that, whatever. It's done so much damage to the sport.
Well, talking about the fathers, there's been comments made from Chris Eubanks Sr., who of course was talking about boycotting the fight,
yeah.
And he felt for his son's life, or feared for his son's life. He was making these comments a few weeks ago, and people were sort of a bit confused about what he was saying, but he's also made some comments after this to The Fight Is Right. He said, "You have toddlers looking after us fighters. These guys are called managers and promoters. These guys, I'm coming for you. You try to murder my boy." Of course, quite heavy and powerful words from Senior.
Look, you know, both Chris Senior and Nigel both involved in fights which had serious consequences for their opponents, life-changing consequences. So, you know, they know better, and you're putting your boy's going in that position. I can see where he's coming from. I mean, you know, you just read that out. But he obviously was he's been upset for a few weeks, and I can only assume, I may be wrong, that he knew about this on the 23rd of September.
They were talking about, well, Eddie has denied this. He put a post out saying we were only going to use the British Border Control and go ahead with this fight. But on the Wednesday at the media workout, there was a lot of people talking about perhaps using a different board, and Callis Howland, promoter of Chris Eubank Jr., said there were conversations about this, about getting Luxembourg involved or a different board to sanction this fight. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I did that many years ago. I did a fight under the auspices of the Luxembourg time. They were members of the EBU, European Boxing Union, same as the Boxing Board of Control. At that time, we were in the EU. And at that time, I never, I've seen Eddie Hearn say that the board wouldn't sanction the fight. They couldn't sanction the fight. Neither of the boxers were licence holders. His license, Derek Chisora's licence was cancelled. He wasn't suspended. If it had been suspended, then he would have been able to fight. He wouldn't have been able to fight in any jurisdiction. And David Hay never had a licence. His licence expired quite a while before that. So what we did was absolutely legal, above board, and more importantly, neither of the boxers tested positive or were positive for drugs.
Okay. So do you believe if Conor and Chris, let's say, weren't licensed with the British Boxing Board Control and they could have used Luxembourg and go ahead with the fight, do you think they would have?
I don't think they've been able to do it. I think that's changed. I mean, you've got the undercard as well, you've got to get your referees, you've got to appoint all these officials in a couple of... It just wouldn't happen. I mean, we didn't do it within 2 days. It started off from day one. You know, long time before the fight, long time before the fight took place. But you know, Matchroom years ago, there was a good fighter. His name was Julian Jackson. He came over here to fight Errol Graham, and on his board medical, he's found to have a cataract in one eye and blind in the other. So the board wouldn't allow the fight, and they took it to Spain. So that's what they did. So you know, a half-blind guy got in the ring and was getting beaten, and miraculously threw the biggest punch ever and practically ended Errol Graham's career. So they've done that. So it's not like they're not doing it. They did it in the States, didn't they? Chavez and Jacobs?
Yeah.
Chavez ran out the gym in Vegas, I think it was, refusing to take a VADA test, disappeared out the back door. Nevada Commission said would not sanction the bout, and they took it across the border into Arizona. They'd done that, you know. So let's say how it is. They've done, you know, that's what they've done. You know, I pulled Danny Williams out. In fact, I went back to ITV a few years ago when Amir Khan turned pro. His first fight, I think, he was in a 4-rounder, and the top of the bill was Danny Williams defending his title. He weighed in, looked all good. I spoke with him. He all seemed happy. Everyone was happy. And then I was sitting having a bite to eat in the evening, about 8:30, and I get a phone call from his wife. And she tells me he's not been well and he shouldn't be fighting. So I then made some inquiries as to what was happening, and I didn't feel I was getting the answers. And I pulled him out that fight. That was our first fight back on terrestrial TV, real important show. But I pulled him out, and we found, and that really was not was not good for us. But it would have been bad for Danny, because how could I? His wife's telling me that. How on earth, if God forbid anything go wrong, I'd be culpable for that. I've been told. Paul Butler a few years ago, final eliminator for the IBF world title. We found out he'd been in a sauna, struggling to make the weight. I pulled him out of the weight, pulled him out the fight. Day before the fight, pulled him out. Ryan Garner in the last couple of years fainted twice, was going to fight. I wouldn't let him fight. Because when you're dealing with the health of the boxer, because really that's what it's all about. It's all about the boxer's health. That's what the Board of Control are there for. Administrate the rules and the governance of boxing, but to protect the boxer's health. And that's really what it's all about. And that's all this has been about. It's not about money. It's about a guy who's been tested positive, and that could be a massive danger to his opponent.
Of course, on the Wednesday fight week, the male leaked this story. If they hadn't, of course, the fight would have been going ahead and would have had the fight.
I don't think it would have.
Do you not think?
No,
What,
because
do you think
the
the board
board-
would have come out?
Oh, the board, they've wrote them.
But people are criticising the board, and I don't know when the board made their decision, if they made it straight away. But whilst I was at the workout, the story came out in the Mail, and then the board put their statement out publicly about 10 minutes after. So there are people, cynics of the board, saying they've only done that just because the story went public.
I think they would have had to do it because that was never going to be kept quiet, was it? It would have come out, and the Board of Control could not put British boxing in that position. And I don't think they would have. I think the Board of Control would probably have done an agreed statement with the promoters. Say, right, we're going to have to let everybody know now. What really is surprising, it took so long from the 23rd of September for this to get to where it got to. It should not have happened. I mean, in the meantime, all the other fighters are training on the undercard and so forth. It was just ridiculous. It was driven by the wrong reasons. And of course, it's professional boxing. We want to make money. I want to make money. That's what we do it for. The fighters want to make money, more importantly. But it's got to be done in a safe environment. And it cannot be a safe environment if one boxer has failed a drug test for taking performance-enhancing drugs.
If that's the case then, and the board were going to always pull that fight, why do you think the promoters involved were carrying on as usual? I mean, the promotion was in full
What they
effect.
were saying all the time is because it didn't go through the proceed. What they're saying, they're saying there was no hearing. Well, as I just said, VADA don't have hearings, but now, and you just confirmed, UCAD have asked for these results and samples. So if that's the case, there will have to be a hearing. There will be a hearing. In the meantime, the board did the correct thing. They did what the promoter should have done.
Do you think there's been a case then ever before, I know this is probably a difficult question to answer, where a fight has involved VADA testing, the promoters requested VADA, they've paid and signed up for it, the tests have come back, one of the tests has been positive, and the fight's still gone ahead? Do you think that's ever happened?
I think it's happened, but I don't want to discuss it. It wasn't one of my shows, that's for sure. I'll tell you another thing was being put up. It was false information as well about Billy Joe Saunders. He did test positive for VADA. They did, and the commission out there, was it Massachusetts?
Yes. Yeah.
They decided what they'd done, and he vacated his title. But the reason he wasn't suspended by the board, because what he had taken was, or what he had in his system, was a drug that the UCAD said was okay to take in when you're out of training. Not training for a fight, and it's bought over the counter, and it's in nasal spray. That's what it was. But he signed up for VADA, and that's what it was. I wasn't happy about it, but that's what it was, and he paid the consequences. I'm fair. The board never suspended him at all. And by the way, getting back to that very quickly, getting back to both David Hay and Derek Chisora after that fight, the very next fights were on British Boxing Board of Control licences.
Frank, I will ask you about, a lot's been made about the doctor, Conor Benn's doctor, I believe his name, Usman Sajid, his doctor. He's made comments before, about a year ago, where he says this is happening quite a lot, and I think his exact words were, you have to be a bit of an idiot to fail a drugs test in this country, in England. Those were his words. And we've seen this weekend Tyson Fury come out and speak highly of Doctor. He said that he's a good guy and he will be involved in his next fight. We saw him on the fight week for Fury White as well. So can you make any comment on that, please, Frank?
Well, I don't know the doctor. I've never met him, so I can't comment on it. All I know is to the boxing board. He's a medical officer. He is, or he was a medical officer of the British Boxing Board of Control, and I understand they're investigating the situation. Other than that, I can't say anything. I mean, until who knows. But one thing is for sure: there are people now juicing. There are people taking these intravenous injections, and I've had this interview with you a few times over the last year or so, and I've told you what I feel about that. You've asked me, and I've told you about that. It's wrong. Of course, it's wrong, and also it's irresponsible. What these kids may pay for this later in their lives.
Frank, unfortunately, and it always was going to happen, this story's got a lot of coverage, of course, and there are a lot of people talking in a negative limelight about boxing, not just boxing fans, but just casual sports fans. So, I mean, where does boxing go from here? Do you think we're okay?
No, I don't. I think it's brought boxing into disrepute in a big way. I think some people have got some things to answer for, and they need to take some responsibility because they made this blossom into something it shouldn't be. It could have been dealt with quite professionally and done without looking at people trying to coerce boxers into fighting and risking their lives. That is all wrong. How do you deal with it? The Board of Control got to deal with it. This VADA situation, and as I mentioned earlier, VADA, UCAD, Board of Control, they've got to get all of them on the same page. It's not about their politics. I don't care about how they feel about each other. It's about the benefit of the boxer. And it can only be for the benefit of the boxer, for everybody to be on the same page, have the same list of substances that cannot be used in the sport, and police the sport, police it properly. And if it's got to be a few more quid's got to be found, then the sport makes money. We'll all have to work out how we do that, but it needs to be dealt with, because what is going on now is totally unacceptable. What went on last week was one of the lowest moments in boxing, and you only got to read the newspapers and see what's being said. Listen, what's being said and what's in the newspapers is purely down to really the facts. The facts are actions caused all that. Promoters' actions caused all that.
Do you believe UCAD and VADA can get on the same page?
I think they're just going to have to. Got to make it work. Listen, they report. What is the point of signing a contract for VADA testing and you totally ignore it? What is the point of that? Oh, it doesn't suit for this fight because this one earns a lot of money, so we've parked that up over there, we won't use that. What did they sign up for? They probably got that to sign up so that maybe the theory was that Chris would be the one who'd be struggling and have to take something to make the weight. I'm not saying he would do that, but that's why it's in it. But, Joe Joyce fought Joseph Parker, VADA. That was nearly all the fights are VADA now, and you have to have it. I mean, one of the main reasons you sign up for VADA, I'm using an American fighter for example. If it's Britain, UCAD are testing you, mate, and you sign for the VADA as well. In some of those states in America, some of them don't even have boxing commissions, and if the fighter lives there or is training now, you want to make sure that he's getting tested regularly by a proper, respected organisation. So that's one of the reasons. But the board, they have to make this work now. They've just got to make this work.
There was a situation where you won the purse bid for, well, actually, let me correct myself, Lou DiBella won the purse bid for Joshua Buatsi and Jean Pascal, and you were going to stage that fight on BT Sport. And the reason that fight didn't go ahead, Joshua Buatsi's promoter, Eddie Hearn, said that he's going to pull Buatsi out of the fight, and Buatsi's team want to pull him out of the fight because Jean Pascal didn't want to sign up for VADA testing. So with what's gone on recently, just get your thoughts on that.
Well, it's quite ironic, isn't it? With Lou, we worked with Lou on that and won the purse bid to put the fight on here. We won a previous purse bid for a Buatsi fight as well, so it's quite disappointing. But obviously, they made some comments about Pascal and what they were worried about. And maybe if you was in their shoes, you would say the same thing. However, you can't say, let's sign up for VADA to test people, and then you're going to ignore it when it suits you.
Obviously, a lot of updates coming for your stable.
Yeah.
Hopefully this week, next week.
Will be this week, yeah. And we'll be having hopefully some press conferences this week and get it all over the line. It's been a bad time. All the pissing around with the AJ fight and this stuff last week. It's not been great for the sport.
Yeah, when you're out and about, as I said, fans aren't talking about boxing in there.
They got the ache with it. I mean, they're not happy, are they? And you can understand why. I mean, you certainly wouldn't be happy you're buying tickets somewhere. I mean, listen, I've had guys get injured, pull out a day before a fight and so forth. It's difficult. Fans buy tickets, they book hotels, they travel. It's really difficult. And you've got, it's hard, especially in this day and age, money's hard to get. People try to be careful where they spend their money and so forth. In this day and age, you've got to show the fans more respect.
Just quickly, in terms of a broadcaster point of view, what do you think the Zone were thinking last week?
What, regarding this fight?
Regarding how it was handled?
I don't think Wasserman's or the Zone would think anything else than we can't be involved in this. How can you be? I mean, they're responsible businesses. I know what happened if it's BT. We would never be broadcasting at all.
Okay, Frank Warren, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV, and I'll see you when you're next looking at me.
I will, mate.
As you always say. Thank you.
I'm going to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something, completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from it, and this has been like a therapy session.